I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunity. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. If needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
In political cases, which this definitely was, the courtroom is the last forum for the oppressed.
In the apartheid regime, as long as you are a member from controversies, once they arrest you, you are already guilty.
No, we can't be silenced in the face of such repression. We have a future to work towards, to live for, and we need to stand up.
It actually started in the late 40s and early 50s in preparation of the Defiance Campaign. Nelson Mandela was elected the volunteer-in-chief in the Defiance Campaign. It had a tremendous effect on his thinking when he realized that there were not only African people that were prepared to go to prison in order to bring an end to unjust laws, but there were colored and Indian white people who were prepared to make that sacrifice. The slogan of the times was that the road to freedom passes through the jail.
You find the Defiance Campaign coming up, your bus boycotts, your pass law boycotts. It was because of that vigor that the younger generation had brought into the ANC. And once they had been able to realize that even at that point when they had brought the country almost to a point of being ungovernable, the oppressors still did not understand. They then said the only solution we have is to take up arms.
At the beginning of June 1991, after a long and anxious assessment of the South African situation, I and some colleagues came to the conclusion that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks on an unarmed and defenseless people. And I think the time has come for us to consider, in the light of our experiences in this stay at home, whether the methods which we have applied so far are adequate.
South Africa has got the best defense system in Africa. They've got the best systems, they've got the best training facilities. So at that time, you couldn't take your stones and your petrol bomb and go and fight against the Defense Force of South Africa to change the system. They then came together and said, let us form Umkhonto weSizwe. And Umkhonto weSizwe was going to be an independent organization of the ANC, but an organization that is going to support the ANC in making sure that freedom does become a reality.
All power. I was charged in 2 cases. Terrorism Trial and the Zerast group. On the day on which we were arrested, the 24th of June, there was a nationwide raid throughout the whole country when large numbers of people were arrested.
What our clients did was not to engage the state and commit petty perjuries about we didn't exactly do this or do that. It was a brave defense. The strategy was to turn the tables, for the accused to become the accusers, which Nelson Mandela did very well. Insofar they expected that the accused will tell petty lies in order to avoid responsibility. On the contrary, they said, yes, we did adopt a policy of violence, but we had no option. We had to do it, and we took very special care to attack only symbols of apartheid and to avoid the loss of human life.
Calmly and patiently, Bram Fischer attacked the indictment. He outlined all its defects, the vague generalizations, the obscurities, the lack of particularity. He dealt with the attack as if everything depended on it. He was fully conscious of the gravity of the situation. He knew that any decision, mistake, or loss of opportunity could well result in the accused being sent to the gallows.
From the word go, they said you are going to die.
Well, at the beginning, everybody thought we were going to hang, including our defense team.
Now, there is no gallows. There were no gallows in Johannesburg, but there are death cells. Any person convicted and sentenced to death, they had cells there before they transferred them to Pretoria to hang. So they put us in the death cells because they were convinced we were going to die.
Even the warders in prison during our case, they say, you have forgotten, we are going to hang.
Except that the 90-day detention, which was a form of torture, led to a number of people breaking down.
Now we are under this 90-day law. You are not even allowed to talk to the people with whom you are arrested. No books, no newspapers, no visitors, no lawyers, no newspapers, nothing.
But later on they changed their language. But the pressure on the Verwoerd government was so strong from the international community that if you dare sentence this man to hang, you will have made the biggest mistake that South African government has ever made. You will have created martyrs of this man. Do anything you like, but don't sentence them to death.
Throughout the world, that justice was on their side. One day, we would need legitimate leaders of the oppressed people to negotiate with in order to find a solution to the country's problems. Sentence them to death, and then we will have no one to negotiate with. Prophetic word.
The Terrorism Act was passed under John Foster's regime. That was in 1967. It was a very important act which took away the rights of accused persons. That if you were charged under that act, you had to prove your innocence rather than state having to prove your guilt. It changed fundamentally the entire principle of South African law. And it was a horrifying act because most people were then charged under that act. And there was very little hope for any accused person who was charged under that act to escape conviction.
We did not know when freedom would come, but we knew that it was an absolute priority for our generation. And we really, really, really feel proud that we're also inspired by the generations just before us, the generations of Mema Sisulu, of Nelson Mandela, of Oliver Tambo, and many others. We were not prepared to let their sacrifices just go down the drain in vain. So we also took up the baton from where they had left.
But we, the youth, were intrepid and quite willing to take up from where our parents had left off.
And that's why you find young men like Solomon Mahlangu left their homes, their mothers and their families to say, we are going to give of our time to fight for the freedom of South Africa.
Now, as a soldier, as a cadre, we had to learn politics because our struggle was first and foremost a political struggle. The June 16 uprising politicized us, and therefore, when people left the country, they were ready. They wanted to fight.
There was no opportunity for us to pursue peaceful political activity, and we therefore wanted to grasp the nettle and train in arms so that we fought on equal terms with our enemy.
And MK played a very important role in politicizing the people to understand that you are fighting against a system and not against people, and not against white people, most definitely not. There was a lot of sacrifice from a whole lot of white people, and therefore, while the government was racist, white people were not particularly seen as being especially racist, particularly racist. And therefore, the idea was this: fight the system, kill the system, not the people, and avoid killing people as much as possible.
There had been a decision by the ANC leadership in view of the commemoration of the first anniversary of the Soweto uprisings to go into the country so as to be present, because we expected that our enemy would know that people were going to celebrate this event of the Soweto uprisings. Solomon Mahlangu was one of the youths who were sent, and one of the comrades who had already trained, who were sent.
On 13th of June, it was on a Monday, very cold Monday morning, and we took a bus from Natal Spruit Hospital to Faraday. And from Faraday, we walked all the way down to Diagonal Street because we wanted to connect the taxis to Soweto. While sitting there, a black policeman, he came from the left door and pushed us. We had a paper bag where we had grenades and the guns, that is the scorpions. And when he pushed, he said, "La taxi invited you."
Lucky got afraid and he dropped the brown shopping bag that he was carrying, and out fell an AK-47 and some ammunition. Lucky got afraid, the policeman got afraid.
And then slowly opened that door. We all jumped out.
Lucky fled in one direction, the policeman ran off in the opposite direction. Nobody knows the identity of the black policeman.
Whilst during that commotion, and we scattered, all of us, and Monty and Soli had, Monty had that paper bag, was running with it, and they followed in the same direction.
They didn't know that they were heading for the back entrance of John Foster Square, the most notorious police station in the country. And they turned, for whatever reason, left into Gok Street and ran into what was the office in front of the John O's warehouse. They didn't know they had gone into the lion's den, and there was a large crowd running behind them, very much the spectator interest. This crowd stood opposite the office of the John O's warehouse. It was minutes before the security police came down from the 10th floor. By now, the shopping bags had been abandoned. They were carrying their weapons. Monde shot 2 men who were employees of John O's. Solomon Mahlangu was behind a dustbin, behind the office. And the police came in, they arrested them. And he stood trial. He had actually not fired a single bullet. But it was this doctrine in our law of common purpose. If you were embarking on unlawful activity, if your colleague committed a crime, because you were with him and you had a common purpose, you could then be charged, you could then be found guilty. And in his case, he was eventually executed at a very young age. Just about every international organization called on the government to not to execute him. Even those who were hostile made those entreaties. When this government, the South African government, refused to listen to that, that galvanized a whole new support structure around him and what happened to him. And that made a significant contribution to the awareness of a broader world to the struggle within South Africa and the injustice that prevailed at that time.
Solomon indeed is a legend of hope in the sense that he paid a supreme price with his own life. He did not plead for his life. Life is the most important asset for all of us here.
My blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom. We are realizing that with this blood, we have managed to achieve our liberation.
And with that kind of spirit, that creates hope for humanity, for the future. For who? For those who come after you, not you. You are saying my life will liberate those who come after me.
And I think Solomon Mahlangu was an inspiration. In the camps, it was even worse because the